Welcome, everybody, to today's webinar. My name is Ryan, and it's my pleasure to be with you today. And something about me, I've been working in the TEFL industry for 18 years as a teacher, manager, teacher trainer. I'm currently based in the UK, just outside London. Okay, so who do we have with us today? We've got people from all over the world, which is great. So we've got people from the USA, from the UK, from Canada, South Africa, Israel, Romania, from the UK, South Africa. That's really great. Fantastic. And the UAE. That's really great. Okay. Well, today we're going to be talking about English for Academic Purposes, or EAP. So let's crack on. Let's get right into it. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, we'll talk about what EAP is. We'll talk about a bit about the history when this was first developed. We'll discuss why we need EAP, or why teachers and students need EAP. We'll talk about the focus of EAP as well. And lastly, we'll talk about how teachers can work in this field. So firstly, what is EAP? What is English for Academic Purposes? Well, it's a specialized area of English teaching, English as a second language. It's focused on developing students' ability to cope with their student studies in third tier education. So preparing for university, doing university foundation courses, and working in these types of educational environments. EAP is very useful for non-native English speakers, but all students at tertiary institutions can benefit from this, um, especially those that want to study some advanced English, for example. Most EFL, if excuse me, most EFL students are at the B2 or C level, but still need help with their academic English. It's worth noting that a lot of educational institutions on the third level will test their proficiency level students. But it's quite often the case that the EAP class is a mixed ability class. So you'll have students of B2, C1, C2. It might be an exam preparation class, for example, where students are studying for a Cambridge exam, for the CAE exam, for example, the Cambridge Advanced English exam, or a proficiency exam. It could be also for IELTS preparation. IELTS is a very important exam for those students that would like to enter university, and they need, for example, a 6.5, or even a 7 in the IELTS exam. So that's what it is. So I've had quite a good experience of teaching EAP before. It's very rewarding. Um, the students are very, very motivated to pass the exam to get into university. So it's really nice to teach EAP. So something about the history. So EAP was developed as a specialized branch of ESP, which is English for Specific Purposes, in the early 1980s. So when we're talking about ESP, we're talking about English for certain businesses, for engineering, for nursing, for health, English for law, legal English, and this is a kind of branch of ESP. But it's now you can kind of consider it a separate branch. EAP is very, very important part of English language teaching. Tertiary institutions wanted to broaden their student base, and bring in students that they can help apply for university places, for example. The foreign students that need this assistance in the application itself, for example, and give them this additional support. So a lot of schools added an EAP element to their teaching portfolio and their teaching offer. So it's become very, very important for lots of English language teaching schools. And it's definitely a great skill for teachers to develop and get more experience in teaching in EAP. So, for example, back in the dawn of EAP, a handful of institutions held pilot schemes, pilot courses, even in the 70s, in the mid to late 70s. But it's only since the 80s that this become very popular. And now quite a lot of schools offer an EAP courses. So why is EAP necessary? Well, lots of vocational colleges, universities, and so on, technical schools as well. They offer these specialized courses for their students. So it could be something quite practical, working in engineering, for example. It could be specific courses that require their students to have additional support to enter. So that's why lots of students really need this extra support, because it's very specialized. So, as I mentioned, we're talking about medicine, engineering, accounts, design, arts, languages as well, agricultural studies, environmental studies. All of these require specialist language, and this is rolled into the course for English as an academic study. Also, these courses rely heavily on lots of jargon. If you think about, for example, legal English, it's very jargon heavy. Excuse me, and students of these subjects have to be very, very knowledgeable about this jargon, this in language, to be able to be specialized for this subject. So by the time they reach university, they're already quite familiar with this technical language. Courses are quite challenging, even for native speakers of English, but of course even more so for non-native students. So they definitely need this kind of support. So think about whenever you've learned new jargon, for example, on the TEFL Academy course, there's a fair amount of jargon on this course as well. So imagine if you are a student of medicine, lots of technological terminology to use, lots of medical English, Latin words, for example, Latin words in English, in law to learn for legal English, for example. So you can imagine how tough this would be for a non-native speaking student. So what is the focus of EAP? Well, there's a much more of an emphasis on how to study correctly as well, and supporting students not only with their specialized subjects, but also to become better students. So how to take better notes, how to organize their work, how to organize their time for study as well, to practice their listening skills specifically, their dictionary skills, their how to record new vocabulary, for example, um, which is also very important, is referencing how to correctly create and add citations to the work that you'll need um, to correctly identify sources for referencing and use particular styles of referencing. For example, Harvard style of referencing, um, to avoid plagiarism as well. These are the type of skills that students really need on EAP courses. Um, Specific help with exams, for example. Cambridge exams are quite similar to other types of exams, but there are subtle differences in the types of question, for example, from IELTS exam. So it's really important to help your students with exam skills, exam preparation techniques, skimming and scanning, for example, in reading. Also, writing skills, technical report writing, essay writing, um, genre writing, mm, dissertation preparation, learning how to create thesis, um, and making an argument, coming to conclusions, for example, um, how to prepare your biography, for example, and also speaking skills, giving presentations in meetings, interactive with other students and tutors, for example, and other people at university. Um, and not only these skills, the English language learning skills, reading, writing, listening, and speaking, but also practical skills like writing emails, for example. It may sound like a simple exercise to write an email, but many students won't be familiar necessarily with the greetings, the sign-offs, the uh, the formats and the conventions of email writing, formal versus informal, for example, is very important. Um, Learning how to fill applications and to submit applications for university. All of these things are also very important. And of course, we shouldn't forget about the grammar skills as well. So on an EAP course, there'll be um, language elements to that, as well as specialized subjects like, for example, international business relations or critical thinking. There'll be grammar skills as well, so advanced grammar as well as advanced vocabulary. Okay, so all of these make up the elements of a good EAP course. Also, just coming back to reading, we need to help our students to understand academic textbooks. So textbooks, they're very intensive reading, um, and we can teach our students how to break these difficult texts down, how to take notes correctly, how to highlight texts, for example, um, how to index properly. These are really important skills. Um, how to do research, how to organize their time to do effective and efficient research. So methodology, writing for postgrad students, so different types of methodology, collecting data, so how to collect and organize the data properly. This is really important. Um, Also, job interview skills and business communication. Um, so these are the type of things that we should getting across and helping our students with. So how does this all fit into an academic curriculum? Well, of course, there are various models around, and different schools have different ways of doing things. Some schools integrate um, a a typical language program into their EAP program, for example. So they fit the specialized subjects with an English part and a practical part. For example, there could be an academic culture section added to the curriculum. So there are lots of different ways to do that. There's a big variety of structures in the UK and in other parts of the world. So, for example, first year students would spend 6 months focusing only on EAP related subjects. So, this could be a bridging course or sometimes called foundational studies. Um, so, typically, they would have um, the beginning of their course front loaded with an intensive English language study at advanced level. This might be combined with um, a first year regular content courses. So then they go on after they've had time to practice and hone their skills in English. Um, they go on to study more specific language for their chosen field, for whatever that might be. So it could be in the sciences or humanities, for example, or in business or economics or maths, for example. Um, so obviously, it gets more challenging as the course goes on. Um, if it's a combination of different things, it can be difficult for students to juggle that as well. And of course, it's very intensive. There is mm, very rarely an opportunity for students to take a break. They need to be really focused, especially when they have deadlines approaching for application to universities. So yeah, it's a very intensive and sometimes stressful time for students as well. So let's say something about how a teacher can get into EAP teaching because I really recommend it. It's something that you will find very rewarding and satisfying. It's not easy when you start to teach EAP. Um, there needs to be, I think you need to have a bit of experience teaching regular TEFL classes before you dip your toes into the world of EAP. But let's talk about a few requirements, shall we? So, obviously, you'll need a TEFL certificate. You'll need a strong TEFL certificate. Um, Ideally, you would have a degree, and that degree would be a related degree, English or linguistics. Um, Obviously, an MA would be great, an MA in linguistics or applied linguistics, or a TESOL is the kind of qualifications that you would need to teach EAP. Um, so it's also possible to have a primary degree in the creative arts, engineering, or even medicine as well. So if you've got some kind of specialized subject knowledge, that really goes a long way to helping you open up the world of teaching in EAP. Um, if if you've got some business background, if you've got qualifications in international business relations or economics, that would certainly help as well. Um, but I think the most important is to have a combination of these qualifications and the experience as well. So yeah, at least a few years of teaching regular TEFL courses under your belt before going into teaching EAP is what I recommend. Um, so build up your experience. You can start slowly. You could find schools that are offering an EAP course. If you have those in your school already, if you're teaching already in the school, it would be good to talk to the academic management there, talk to the teachers that are teaching on EAP courses, give them advice, ask them how they started. You might start with teaching exam courses, for example, teaching um, Cambridge First preparation courses, for example, or something on the lower end of the level scale for Cambridge exams or for IELTS or other exams. Um, and then you can start to build up your confidence and your experience, and then you can start getting into EAP. So yeah, most newly qualified teachers would find it quite difficult to get into EAP from the very beginning. So it's something that you need to kind of gradually build up your experience. Um, and it does certainly help if you've got some industry experience. If you're coming from a kind of an academic background as well, if you've got some experience of being in the academic world, this really would help. Okay, let's talk about the some of the advantages of working in EAP and making a career of it. Many teachers that I work with are exclusively teaching EAP, and they find it great because the salaries are certainly higher than in regular TEFL teaching. But sometimes very much higher. So once you've cracked open the doors of EAP, it's great to stay there. I see some of you are asking questions already. That's great. I won't forget. I'll come back to these at the end um, of the presentation. Some really good questions coming through. Um, so as I mentioned, also students are very very motivated. They've paid a lot of money, quite a lot of the time for their courses. They're extremely motivated to get into university. So then, they don't want to miss any classes. They're very good students. They want to study. Um, so that's great. It's always great when you've got students that want to be there. They're on time. They don't miss classes. They're eager to tap into your knowledge, and they really want to learn. So that's really good. Um, Adult students, yeah, absolutely. So if you are not so keen on teaching teenagers or young learners, then EAP would be a good option for you because obviously they need to be adults to enter university. So this is really good, and because they're all adults, there's a wide range of age ranges. It's not just mm, late teenagers and 20 somethings that are going into university. There's mature students as well, people entering into a second career, having a career change, for example. So you get a great range of people that want to go into university or pass an exam. They might need an exam for their work, for example. They might be already working in the academic world in their culture and their country. So this is really great, and you can pick up a lot of work that way as well. Um, so it's worth mentioning as well if you do have a fair amount of experience, you can I know that we talked before about operating as a freelance English teacher. So you can do this as well with EAP, and that you can charge higher prices as well, definitely for one-to-one or small groups, for example. So there are lots of opportunities there. A few more of the advantages. So um, you can work as a facilitator, excuse me, bit of a frog in my throat today, excuse me. Um, so there's a more equal relationship between you and the students. So you don't have to do as much of the heavy lifting as you might have to do with normal TEFL classes. For example, in the intermediate level, A2, B1, B2, you need to have a lot of input or deliver a lot of input for your students. Um, so in an EAP class, you're more of a facilitator. You provide the information, you can set the work, you can provide the materials, for example, you can give lectures. Um, also there is a fair amount of transaction between you and the students, especially when you're doing the advanced English elements of the EAP course. Um, but it's it it's not as how to say, it's sometimes can be a lot less of a burden on you as a teacher for you to get students to do the work. Number one, they're already very motivated, and there's much more of a responsibility on their side, um, that they're going to do very well in their field. They're going to excel in their career. Um, and of course, when you get the results and you help the students achieve their objective, this is very, very satisfying and rewarding. Um, Also, teacher can explore a range of authentic text as well. So, whatever the field, there's always going to be authentic information from various sources, news stories, economic publications, for example, specialized publications in the chosen field of your students. So there's lots and lots of great material out there for you to choose. And if you like teaching authentic materials, as I do, um, then this is fantastic. It's really up to date. Um, if the syllabus where you're working for EAP is set, it's a great resource for you to work around, but you can actually supplement that with what's going on in the world as well. It's always up to date. The danger is if you've got a set syllabus in EAP or in any kind of teaching environment, come to mention, it's kind of out of date the moment it's put down on paper. So the great thing about using authentic material is that it's live and it's very current, of course. Okay, let's talk about some of the disadvantages. There are some of those as well. So lots more preparation time in EAP, um, because there's more details. I think there's more jargon. You'll need to do your own homework in preparation for teaching EAP classes. Um, so you'll need to be thoroughly prepared when you walk into that classroom. There's less room for spontaneity and spur of the moment decisions that you can make, because you've got a plan. You should really stick to your plan, um, to make sure that you've got everything covered that you need to get across to your students. Um, Especially if you're not so familiar with the specialized subject matter. Um, mm, you'll definitely have to go and do your own research sometimes, and this takes more time. Um, there are certainly higher expectations as well in teaching EAP. The students expect you to know your stuff, and they'll be definitely, very, very knowledgeable about their subject matter already. So you need to be able to give them more than they've got already. So you need to be one step ahead. Um, and yeah, there's definitely a lot of more preparation time and more detailed work to put in. Um, you could be given also very different subjects as well. So it might be something that you're not quite familiar with. The groups change all the time as well. One class can be very different from the other classes, and you might be given something that's completely out of your subject field and out of your comfort zone. You might have to, for example, you might even have to cover for other EAP teachers. Um, um, and you'll need to make sure if other teachers are covering for you, this is also a very important point, that you are providing them very intensive and very detailed cover notes, a scheme of work, a lesson plan, for example. Um, Also, of course, you're going to have observations, and your work is going to be scrutinized as well, and you're going to have feedback from that. Um, there'll be inspections in your institution, so there's lots of regulation in EAP teaching, as there is in normal TEFL teaching as well. So be prepared for a little bit more preparation time and administration. Um, okay, we'll just, I think what we'll do is maybe just really quickly review some of the things that we've spoken about here today. So we've talked about the history. Um, EAP developed in the 70s, but become very popular in the 80s. And schools added EAP elements in order to attract new students to their school, and it's very popular now. Um, Also, we mentioned the different subject fields that you can get into, vocational colleges, arts, history, engineering, and so on, social sciences, for example. Um, EAP can be very challenging for students. All of the skills come into play, so reading skills, writing, listening, and speaking, but also all very much geared towards university entrance, for example, more technical skills, skimming, scanning, note taking, and so on. Um, Also, research methodology, so ethnographic research, for example, quantitative and qualitative research skills. We talked about how this fits into the curriculum, and we also talked about the ways that you can enter the EAP teaching field. You need definitely relative qualifications and lots of experience before you're able to kind of really solidly take a foothold in EAP teaching. Okay. We talked about the advantages. The salaries is obviously much higher. Um, uh, if you enjoy adult students, that's great as well. But there are also some disadvantages. There's more preparation time, the higher expectations as well. Okay, so I think what we'll do, we'll get into some questions now. And I just want to remind you that all of the previous webinars are up on the TEFL Academy YouTube channel. If you do have any technical questions, by the way, it's much better to raise a ticket to get your tutor support. Okay, well, thanks for bearing with me so far. My voice is a little bit weak this week, so thanks for your patience. Just take some water, and I think now we'll get into some questions. Okay, so let's have a look at some of your really good questions. So Karina says, is having a degree in TV and media production acceptable for a primary degree if you'd like to teach EAP? Yes, I would say that's a great example. Um, so this is a very popular course in many universities. So if you've got a specialized degree in these fields and teaching experience, so the TEFL qualification, then that's a great opportunity for you to test the waters uh, in using your specialized subject knowledge to get into EAP. Carolina, is that something that you'd like to do? Catherine asks, if you would like to teach an exam prep course for IELTS or the exam Cambridge exams, how would you start if you were working independently? Is there a teacher's guide? But I'm think I'm right in saying there are some guides on the TEFL Academy website about this kind of route into teaching. Um, how would you start if you're working independently? Yeah, so you could start offering specialized exam preparation courses, exam preparation tutorials, and lessons if you're teaching independently. Um, if that's something that you'd like to do, if you have experience of that, yeah. This is also another opportunity and much more specialized than teaching general English. So your prices can be adjusted accordingly. Um, there's very big opportunity and scope for people that want to work independently and teach exam classes and EAP, most definitely. In terms of a guide, um, I'm sure there are lots of specialized books about this out there, but do check out the TEFL Academy website. I'm sure there's something for that on there. Is it vital for a teacher to pass IELTS or TOEFL um, and other proficiency tests themselves if they want to prepare for those? Some schools and teaching institutions require their teachers to be C1 or C2 um, for them to teach on EAP courses. It can vary. Um, so, in terms of IELTS as well, some schools might require a minimum of IELTS 7, for example, for you to be teaching. Um, obviously, that you need to have a very good level of English to teach others advanced English for EAP purposes. I hope that answers your question. Will they accept a degree in bioscience to teach EAP? Most definitely. Bioscience is absolutely hot topic at the moment. So, a degree in bioscience, along with teaching qualifications and experience, most definitely is an acquired and an in-demand field. So, yes, I would say that's a definite possibility. Very specialized field, and I'm sure many students would like to study bioscience. So, can you work as an EAP teacher specifically in one industry? For example, adult student is studying EAP to be able to study a creative art degree in the UK. Okay. Could I teach EAP specifically rated to the media? Absolutely. Yep. So, depending on the institution, that might be one of the courses offered. It might be an advanced diploma, for example. It might be a foundation course for the creative arts. And these are the type of subjects that often pop up on EAP courses in different educational environments and organizations. So definitely media is another a very hot topic as well. Okay. Can non-native EFL teachers have a career as EAP teachers as well? Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Non-native teachers can absolutely have a very good career as EAP teachers because they quite often have a very good um, level of English. They've learned English themselves. They've come up through for teaching English as a second language as well. Um, they have a specialized degree in a subject in the arts or the sciences, for example, or engineering, mathematics, or business. And absolutely no reason why non-native teachers can't have a very, very successful career as EAP teachers. Is that something that you'd like to do? Tell me in the comments. Are you thinking about it? What kind of qualifications do you have? Let me know. Slowly losing my voice, but please bear with me. Okay, a few more questions. What about English translator? Oh, that's a really good question. I'm I'm sure there may be some courses out there or EAP courses that work in language or translating or interpreting. I'm not too sure, to be quite honest. That I think the best idea is to see what's out there. Um, do a search for EAP courses for translating. If you are a registered translator, and you've got the necessary qualifications, I'm sure this is some schools would really like that experience. But I think especially if you were thinking about um, being a freelance EAP teacher, this is obviously a very specialized area as well. So, for example, you could quite easily set yourself up as English for translating or preparing for a career as a translator and supporting that with very specialized English language support, along with the technical skills that you need to be a translator and the soft skills as well. Translating is almost like an art, I think, as well as a science, because it can be quite subjective. So I would say do your research and see what's out there. You might be surprised. You might be very much surprised. Okay. Is there a specific list of fields that require EAP to look at? A specific list of fields? I don't think there's a list out there of specific fields. It would vary very much from school to school. So, for example, in the institution where I work, there is maths, there's physics, there's psychology, um, international business relations or business management. Um, so we have those in our range of EAP and university preparation pathway type courses. Other schools might specialize in arts, for example. I know that many schools specialize only in the creative arts. Um, I've worked in schools that offer preparation foundation courses in graphic design, in media, in art, in illustration. So, for example, they would offer courses in that range. There might be other courses, institutions that are very science based, so STEM based EAP offerings. So, I don't think there's one list, and schools can be very specialized. I hope that answers your question. Carolina says yes, she is interested. That's great. Good luck. I hope you have great success. Here's a great question. What is the demand for psychology in EAP? Well, that's funny you should say that. As I've mentioned, at my institution, we offer a psychology foundation of a psychology university entry pathway academic program. So very much in demand. Yeah, absolutely. Psychology, a very popular choice. Things like positive psychology courses out there. Um, and within the field of psychology, you've got your different disciplines as well. So it's a very specialized field, and many institutions would offer a psychology element in their EAP courses, most definitely. So, how difficult is it to convert from being a high school teacher to an EAP teacher? That's a very good question. I think it depends on your experience, your qualification, your area of expertise. Um, many teaching institutions would accept a teaching qualification, for example, um, in as well as a master's or a degree in English language teaching or in a specialized subject, for example. So, for example, in my institution, again, as my own way of illustrating, the teachers coming from, at least some of them coming from a high school or university environment to come and teach EAP in a language school in the university pathway part of that offering for that school. So it's definitely possible, but it will depend again and vary very much from place to place, from organization to organization. Okay, just a comment here from Erin. Thank you so much. It's one of my majors. Okay, that's great. So, are there any more questions coming through? Is there anything else you'd like to ask me about EAP teaching? Let's just have a look at some of the comments here. Okay, so I think I'll say something more about teaching exam classes. Um, Teaching exam classes is, I think, probably a good step to take. So, quite often you'll work in a school that helps students prepare for the Cambridge exams, for example. So at the higher end, from B2 level, you've got the Cambridge First exam, very, very popular. And then you've got the CAE, which is the Cambridge Advanced exam, and then CPE, Cambridge um, Proficiency exam. So um, you might have students that are studying for a very long time. They're starting at B2 level, going all the way up to the C2 exams, and you can help them all the way through that. So the other option, of course, is IELTS. This is a standard English test that many universities insist on um, for their students to have a minimum, usually around 6.5, depending on the specialization. So some universities might require a 7 or even higher than that for their students. So this is part of the course. Um, Here's a question from Svendia. Is it contract work only year to year? Not necessarily. Um, so it's obviously an option, but institutions um, much prefer, in my experience, teachers that are there for at least the whole term, not to have a very short term availability. So very often students are on a 6 or 9 month program, and it's really great to offer them that teaching continuity, so that they've got the same teacher throughout their whole course. Um, but obviously there are variations from school to school, from um, organization to organization, where hourly paid work, short term temporary contracts are also going to be available. Are teachers specializing in students with learning disabilities in demand? Oh, that's a fantastic question. Very good question. So the answer is yes, absolutely. So, for example, dyslexia, helping students with dyslexia and other special educational needs that they have um, are very much sought after. So, if you've got experience and qualifications in this field, you're very much in demand because most schools um, have a kind of in-house expert for helping students with special educational needs. So this is a really good option. So if you've got those skills and those qualifications, yeah, there's definitely opportunities for you out there. Aaron says, "Excuse me again. Is there no problem, Aaron? Is there an interest in philosophy in EAP too? It's not often popular, so I thought I'd ask." Okay, well, it should be because philosophy is increasingly important in our world, I think, especially, for example, the advance of artificial intelligence. So there are a lot of questions that we need to ask ourselves, and philosophy might help with this. So I think it would be worth looking at that. Um, I think it might be more popular than you think. I would like to think it's becoming more popular as well, Erin. Um, so I think it depends. That obviously universities up and down the country in different countries as well um, are known for their psychology programs. Not every university offers such a program, so it's worth doing your homework about that. And quite often you'll find work in those places where the universities have a philosophy program. That's a really good question. Um, yeah, fantastic. I really would hope to think that philosophy is still popular. What hours as a facilitator for special needs children qualify as experience? If you have a written letter from their headmistress, for example, what hours as a facilitator? I think that would add to your portfolio, most definitely. Hours as a facilitator. Um, yeah, I think if you've built up this experience um, over a good period of time, this would definitely help you to put on your CV. Excuse me. A written letter from the headmistress. I'm not sure if schools would accept that. I think they would. They would. It doesn't hurt. Most organizations would like to see evidence. So, work experience, your work history on your CV, and of course, any qualifications that you've got, any training courses, any specialized courses that you've done as well in this area would definitely help with that. Um, so, I think it does depend from place to place, but you know, a solid work history on your CV and experience is definitely going in the right direction. It's Erin. She says, "That's great to hear. South Africa hasn't really embraced the subject, which makes sense considering it's still a third world country." Okay, interesting statement, Erin. Um, it's a developing area, that's for sure. Um, but I think, in the coming years, philosophy is going to be increasingly important. That's my humble opinion, anyway. So hopefully, there's going to be much more opportunities for people with experience in teaching philosophy. Okay, are there any more questions before we wrap things up today? So, thanks everybody again for your company. I do have to apologise. My voice is very weak today. I'm struggling along here, but hopefully, what I've said today is helped you. Um, and I do hope that if you are interested in doing in pursuing career in EAP teaching, that you're not scared by this great opportunity. I really love this area. I love the motivated students. I don't like the extra preparation as much, but it's certainly very, very rewarding. So good luck. Um, let us know at the TEFL Academy how you get on with this. And hopefully I'll see you again for some more webinars. I just want to leave you and say thank you for attending. And if you can be so kind to leave some feedback for us, there's a link there. I'll put the link in the comments as well for you. Your feedback is very, very much appreciated. We're always trying to improve our offerings at the TEFL Academy. One of the ways to improve that is to drink more water. So thanks for bearing with me today. Okay, so I'll say fond farewell. Please check out the other videos on the TEFL Academy YouTube site, and good luck with everything. So that's bye-bye from me. Thank you.